How's that for shameless advertising? Link in the description box will get you to this website where you can get all your Pico stuff, and hopefully they're getting equipment in stock. I haven't called in a while, so reserve yours now if they don't. So quick question. Have you guys ever been walking on the beach or hiking in the woods and you look down and there's something very shiny on the ground? And you focus on this shiny object so much you fail to look around you where the important stuff is? That's kind of how I felt after I fixed this car. My shiny object was this current trace, and I focused on it a lot. That trace up there held all the answers. What I'm fighting with is a 2020 Nissan Sentra with a P0404. It's an EGR code. Sometimes it would fail 3 times in an hour. Sometimes it wouldn't fail for 3 days. It was intermittent. How's that? I'm going to unpack this case study. It's going to take me a little while. I'm hoping I can get through it quickly, so bear with me. I'm probably going to flip-flop around between service manuals and scope captures. I'm definitely going to go over this one. This was one of the first captures I took. The answer was right there, but I didn't see it. And I finally found it, but I didn't see it at first. Thank you guys for the new subscribers. The subscriber count's going up. Edgar Santos, I appreciate your contribution to the channel. Give me an update on that car you're working on. I'm very curious about that. I haven't heard from you in a while. Nissan Dealer Tech on Instagram. Glad you guys got that 01 Maxima with a very, very cool problem. Unless it's in your bay eating your lunch. But I'm glad you guys got that fixed. I'd almost like to see one of those come in and get a bunch of captures and make a video of it, but I don't know. Those chances of those cars showing up at the dealer anymore are pretty slim to none. So it's almost St. Patrick's Day, so to my Irish friends, you know who you are. You better be watching my videos. I'm going to check you. I'm going to give you a quiz on this. So thank you guys for subscribing, and have a good one. 2020 Nissan Sentra. This is the code I'm chasing. This car is not running. It's simply key on. So I'm going to erase this. Try to give you guys a show of what I'm doing inside the car before I get to the scope. I'm going to erase everything. Bear with me. It takes it a minute. Okay, so I'm just going to go up here to active test, and I'm going to pick on the EGR control, and I'm going to hit start, and this is where you can actually control the valve, quick up and quick down. I don't know if you guys heard that beep, but you can see here I'm hitting up and down, and you see no degree changing. This is kind of a tip. If this thing trips a code, it kills the active test. See, there's our code back. So I'm going to get a shot of the scope, and I'm going to set up a trigger, and I'm going to try to capture a couple of signals while this thing trips the code, and we'll go over what I see and what we figure out. P0404. Here's my code. 2 different ways or methods, I guess it looks at it to set the DTC. I accidentally cut this off, but it says possible causes: malfunctioning EGR or foreign debris caught in the valve. EGR lives in a pretty hostile environment, so I'm sure that there's software programmed in to monitor that valve versus the amperage it takes to shut it, and then it makes a decision if something is clogging the valve. I'm going to test that theory later in the video. So this is what I'm up against. ECM detects that the current sent to the EGR volume control valve is basically more than what it wants. So it's sending more current than what it should to get the desired result. And this right here is basically the angle of the valve where it thinks it should be, it's not, depending on how much current. So the system's pretty smart, and it should be, because, you know, EGR, obviously for emissions, one thing, and two, drivability. If this thing is not precisely monitored, you could get some pretty hateful drivability. So as with any electrical device, and I see the word current, this is the start of my shiny little part that I am really going to focus on. So let's go ahead and look at the first capture. Actually, no, we're going to look at a wiring diagram. I'm going to show you my first hookup. Here's my first hookup. If you look at the call out over here, motor positive and negative. So if this valve wants to open, it applies current or power this way, and the current flow goes this way. The valve opens. This valve has a very stiff spring in it, so the motor's constantly trying to keep it open, and the spring pulls it shut. The EGR valve has the ability to reverse current, which we will see, and try to electrically shut the valve, because if it thinks something's stuck in it, and then it gives up after a while. So here's 5 volt to the little hall switch that monitors it. Here's the signal, and here's the ground. My very, very first hookup, and we're going to go over it, is I am back probed at 5. I'm back probed at 6. And I have an amp clamp right at the valve with the arrow facing this way. So, meaning if I'm getting power flow this way, my current should be going up. If I get current flow this way, meaning it wants to shut the valve, then my current's going to go down. So that's my very first hookup. Oh, and I'm also back probed here at number 1. I want to take a look at the sensor input to the ECM. So all my hookups are right at the valve. And you've seen in the video, all I did was push start, and it failed. And here's the capture. Let's see, it's this one. All right, so one thing I want you to notice in the video, if you want to look back at it, from the time that I hit start and the time that it showed me the screen with the numbers on took approximately 2 seconds. Well, from the time I hit start, which was right there, to the time it failed, which is about right, you can kind of see where it just dumped, everything dumped. It failed right there. It gave up. It pulled too much current. It took 779 milliseconds, less than 1 second, about 3/4 of a second. This system was failed and offline. It took 2 seconds before my scan tool showed me that. At this moment going forward, I no longer have faith in the data that I'm getting from the scan tool, because it's failing faster than the scan tool can get me the information. And I don't know if the data PIDs are substituted values or they are live values. I don't know. What I do know is I trust my scope. My scope doesn't lie. It just depends on me interpreting it. So with that being said, let's see. So the blue trace going up here, pulsing upwards, should open the valve. As you see, the current's going up right there. When the red trace is going up, it is reversed polarity, and now it's driving my valve shut. And I'm like, why is this thing driving this valve shut? There's nothing stuck in the valve. I visually inspected it. Nothing is in the valve. If there were something stuck in the valve, you would more than likely get rough running or drivability. If anybody's ever opened an EGR valve, you know at idle, especially on a little 4-cylinder, they run rough. This valve is not stuck open. Why is the computer doing what it's doing is the question. And my shiny piece of metal that I'm chasing is this current. and this voltage. What I am not chasing, and is actually the problem, which we will see later, is this gold trace right here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it up here because I completely ignored it. I mean, I didn't ignore it, but if you just look at it, it's at 5.98 millivolts. There's nothing dropping out. There's nothing going up, nothing going down. It gets a little fuzzy right there, and that's mainly because of all this current. Nothing stuck out at me. So I'm just going to put it up here. So now I'm zooming in. Our code set criteria is basically overcurrent. What is causing overcurrent? Something stuck? Or do I have some sort of a harness issue shorting to ground, giving an overcurrent? And that's what I'm going to chase. Because I notice I see, every time I see a blue, like where I don't have blue, I have red. Well, right there I have nothing. Right there I have nothing. I have no current. I have no voltage. What are these gaps for? Right there I have something. And then I've got this massive gap right here. So my theory is, because of where I have my probes, I am missing out on a short to ground. So let me go back to the diagram and show you what I'm thinking in my head. So I'm back probed here and here, and my amp clamp is right there. So if I have a short to ground before my hookups, I'm going to show 0 here, or no voltage. The ground side's not going to matter. And if my clamp is here and my short is here, I will never see the current flow. And that fits my code set criteria, because I'm sure the ECU is monitoring this line for how much current it's taking. In fact, it said it would. It fits what I'm seeing, and it's making me test farther into this theory. I stand behind the theory because I do believe it works. And with the intermittency of this car, and actually the problem was right here, I'm chasing this a little bit. So keep that in mind. If I have a short circuit right there, I'm never going to see it here. So let's go back to my capture. Where's it at? So there we go. No voltage, no current. I'm not worried about the ground side. So now I have direction. I'm either going to have to prove it good or bad that I have a short in this harness somewhere. So while it was acting up, just for the hell of it, I took another capture. I had to clear all the codes out, and I took another capture, and this time it actually did not set the code, but I got that same crazy possible short circuit scenario. Now, I just said the answer. It did not set the code. So therefore, it shouldn't have been a problem. But I chased it anyway, because this, to me, was too shiny. The gold, I fell into it. There's my signal wire. Notice the voltage on this one. I'm going to back up real quick. All right, so if I draw a line right there, actually, let's get down and dirty here. All right, let's just call it 550. And I forgot to show you guys this, so let's back up one. And let's go back to the thing I ignored. And let's see where it starts out at. All right, so this one starts out about 580. Very important. I didn't know it was this important. At 580, it failed. At 550, it did not fail. But I ignored that. Like I said, I am focused and honed in on this short circuit, possible short situation. And if I scroll through this capture, see that blue, look, nothing there. I'm thinking, man, that's got to be my short. This thing is shorting. I've got to move my clamps. Look, there's another one. But it never failed. But I'm so focused on this, blinded by its beauty. So I decided to prove this theory one way, shape, form, or another. I have got to move my amp clamps. I have got to reset up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a video, a little in-shop video of me shaking the harness. And when I was shaking the harness, I had already moved my clamps. So after the video, I'll show you my new setup, and then I'll go over that capture. And that was finally the capture that I kicked myself in the head and said, dude, you are barking up the wrong tree. You're in the right forest, but you have got the wrong tree. So hang on for the new video.
Moving this harness down here. That area right there.
So in the video, you saw me shaking the harness, and you seen the capture take a dive, which I'm going to go over that exact capture. So my new setup was this. I've now exposed the ECU. I am back probed voltage-wise here and here. So I'm looking at the pulse width. And now I've got an amp clamp here facing that way. And then I've got another amp clamp here facing downwards. So if this thing is trying to open the valve, I'm going to see the current go this way and then go this way. So everything should go up. If it closes the valve, everything should go down. And these two should mirror each other the whole time if I don't have an external short to ground. So now if my clamp is here and I have a short here, my voltage will go to 0, but I ought to see the amp shoot way up. So this is the way that I'm going to prove my theory. Now what I've done is actually I've taken and shot myself right in the foot, because I took my signal wire and put it to a different clamp. And I'm losing the vital information that I needed to fix the car. But that's hindsight. Right now, I'm telling you, I am chasing my shiny little piece of chrome. So that's my new setup. And after this one, I put it to rest, thank God. Oh, and I'm going to show you this real quick about the service information. Oops, that was from this morning. All right, so if you're back probed at the ECU and you're looking at basically what I was looking at, remember it was 580 millivolts or 550 millivolts. This is the spec out of the service manual. 1 volt or battery voltage output voltage varies with EGR valve, EGR volume control valve. Okay, the only thing I believe or agree with is it varies. This 1 volt or battery voltage, there's no, I don't believe that. In fact, I'm going to show you the good capture. There's no way in hell that this is any good. So I've got that statement. Now this spec is what you would see on the data. The data PID, approximately 0.51. Well, hindsight, that's a good number. I did not trust this number. I wasn't sure if this thing was sticking a substituted value in. And then you've got a huge discrepancy between the scan tool voltage and actual voltage. So I disregarded all of it. I'm going with what I know, and that's my scope. So that's my little knock right there. So let's look at the scope. Let me back up. Okay. When you saw in the video, you saw my system tank, and there it is. This thing, I mean, it took a dump on me. And you see, I keep my notes very, very, very specific. Mainly because if I go look at this 5 years from now, I want to remember what I did. And anybody who sends me captures, please be very detailed in how you're hooked up. If you help me, I can help you better. Okay, so back to this. So what happened here? So my theory is I had a short to ground. So let's check my theory. Well, no voltage, no voltage, no current, no current. So I just got lucky and pulled that one up. That just shot my theory right in the ground. I mean, if there was short in this harness after the computer, one of these amp clamps would have seen it. And they're not. So basically the computer is doing this. It's turning this off. I just had to prove that wasn't my issue. Right there's another one. And you see the clamp. The clamp didn't catch it. So what happened? So right before the failure, I'm going to look. I mean, something happened right in here that this thing did not like. And I can't figure out, it's not in this capture. The problem is, I told you when I disconnected my signal wire and put another clamp in, is when I really went off kilter here. I'm not sure what happened here. Now remember, I'm shaking the hell out of this harness when this capture is going on. So things are happening. It didn't like something right there. But all I'm seeing is a result. I'm not seeing a cause. So I've got to go back to the drawing board. I had all my eggs in this basket. I felt so bad that my theory just got knocked out. I mean, my theory is junk now. I felt almost like that empty feeling when you misdiagnose a car and you've already hung the part. Well, I haven't put any parts on this car, but yet what I thought was I knew was wrong with this car is what's wrong with this car. So I've got to back up. I've got to punt. I've got to think about this a little bit. And this capture, it took this capture to kick me in the butt to get me thinking again. So I'm going to show you another little video of an experiment I did. And that made me rethink again. So this capture got me thinking differently. Then I'm going to show you an experiment. And then after the experiment, I finally got my ass back on the right track and fixed the car. So hang on a minute. Let me get that other video up.
All right, so here's a valve, and this is the experiment I did to kind of prove my theory. You can see this thing's got a pretty heavy spring, so as power and ground is applied, it opens and shuts. So what I did just to prove things out is I took a piece of electric tape and wedged in here, and you can see where it came through here, and just that little piece of tape stuck in there would make this thing try to shut itself and would actually trip the exact same code. This is a new valve. I just simply plugged the harness from the car in and just set it on the intake and did this little test just to kind of get more of a feel for what I was working with. But I thought that was kind of neat. It definitely proved how sensitive these things are.
So after I did that little experiment, the capture that I got looked exactly like this. This was the original. This is the original capture. This is the first capture we looked at. So what the experiment told me was exactly how sensitive this system is. So when I'm thinking of a signal, in order for the signal to be correct, it has to have the proper amount of voltage coming to it, and it has to have the proper amount of ground, or lack of voltage drop to ground, I guess is what I'm saying. So remember, 583, that's where this one started. The second capture was down in the 550s. It did not fail. So if you have a Hall effect switch and it's a 5-volt circuit and you put 6 volts to it, the signal's going to be higher. If you have that same Hall switch and you have 5 volts input and you have 100 millivolt voltage drop on ground, which is horrible, your signal voltage is going to be higher. The problem with this vehicle is in this capture. And let me explain. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use some Pico magic here, and I'm going to do some vertical zoom. Let's go up about 9-ish. All right, and with that, we're going to have to put some filter on there. So let's put a little filter on there. And let the software work its magic. Okay. Now let's look at this signal, which is what I should have done to begin with. The computer's probably going to work a little slow because I'm asking a lot of the software. So first and foremost, we are starting off at 5.8, which is too high. I know that now. The computer didn't like it. It thinks that something's jammed in it. So what it's doing is it's reversing the current to try to close the valve. Well, the more it reverses it, you see, the valve's actually, it's not opening farther physically, but the voltage is telling the computer it's opening farther. And I'm guessing because of all this current flow, it's affecting the ground a little bit on the whole system. So this thing is down here at -4 amps, but yet it thinks the valve is still opening, or it can't shut it. It's either that or the thing's flexing. I doubt it's flexing. It seems to be pretty sturdy. So then it releases it, so all my current goes back to 0. You know, then my voltage drop changes a little bit, and then it goes back to its original 5.8. So what would cause that? Well, I had 5 volts going to the thing, to the sensor side of the circuit, and the whole time I was shaking that harness and I got that thing to fail, I did not have a pin here, so I couldn't see it. I was too worried about the amperage. This thing had a loose pin. This is a pin fit problem. It had a loose pin right there, number 79. So what I'm thinking is, internally, these things must ground together, because the more current I ran through here, the more the voltage drop increased here, which in turn made the signal look higher here, because I had high resistance right there. Now it's tied together to this intake manifold runner control valve, and the only reason I'm thinking it didn't fail this is because this valve is either open or closed. It's either open, it's probably closed at cold start idle to help, you know, swirl and emissions, and then once the engine gets to a certain temperature, it opens. I don't think this thing goes down the road opening and shutting in the intake. I think it would create way too much drivability. So I really don't think the computer is watching this signal as closely, because the spec on this is either like 1 volt or 4 volts. It's either open or shut, where the computer is watching this thing in millivolts, So that voltage drop made a hell of a lot more difference to the computer here than it did this guy. So there was a loose pin right there. I was chasing current here. Well, the reason I had high current, like I said, guys, hindsight is always 20/20. The reason I had high current is because the computer was trying to shut it. And it thought something was in it because of the voltage drop. So it's trying to shut it, and it's actually looking like it's going open. Well, I knew it wasn't opening because the car had no drivability. This thing kind of beat me up, man. I tell you what, I thought I was going to have to go through therapy over this, but I've learned a lot. I've got yet another little video, and then I've got a good capture. Always have a good capture, and I'm going to show that to you guys. This right here was an eye-opener. The evidence, I had the evidence right there. Very first capture. Right there. Overlooked it. That's what drives me crazy, is because I try to scrutinize every capture with a fine-tooth comb, and I had the information right in front of me, and I drug this thing out a little longer than what I should have. But I'm gonna do the right thing and share my boo-boo with you guys, and I'm certainly gonna learn from this, because let me open this one back up. This is the one that did not fail, and that's my signal wire right there. And let's see, let's zoom in on it a little bit. Whoops, when do we do that? Other one about 9. Let's go about right there. Let's put some filter on that. And you see this one did not fail. Let me zoom back out, because like I said, this problem was intermittent and it was behaving. So when the computer wanted it to go open, it actually opened. And when it wanted it to go shut, it shut. The only thing I could think of is it was making good connection, a good enough connection to where it didn't fail itself on this one. But I'm gonna show you another quick video of the pins. I'm not gonna bore you with how I soldered it together, but I am gonna show you the pins on my toolbox after I had fixed them and how loose they were. And then I'll just poke at the good capture real quick, because I always do. Thanks for watching this far, guys, by the way. Thank you, guys.
Got the pins here. This is the bad one. I just use a regular male terminal, and this is how I check my pin fit. But this is the one I took out of the car. Hope you can see it, but you can see it just falls right out. And this was one beside it. It was a little better, but I replaced it anyway. But if I was there doing it, might as well make them both perfect. But yeah, just that little pin fit created all the problem. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Alright, last but not least, here's the good capture. As you can see, I've already did the zooming and the filtering and all just to save a little time. But here's my signal wire again. And first off, notice where it starts at. We'll just kind of cut that crap in the middle. 515. So this is after everything's soldered. And of course the current's going up. So that means it's opening the valve. And it kind of maintains. So it's opening the valve, and it's at 556. Whereas before, if you remember way back, key on it was 556. And then the one capture it failed, key on was 580. So within about 70 millivolts, this guy's not happy. And you know, you've seen how it drove the current really high. You know, it thought the valve was open, so it kept pushing down on the valve. Well, the valve's shut. Just like any any DC motor, if you stop it, like, it's just the current's going to ramp up. You know, if you grab a hold of a wiper arm while the wiper's or trying to work, the amperage is going to go way up on that motor. Well, same deal. It thought the valve was open, so it kept jamming it closed, and then finally, you know, the computer, for self-preservation reasons, you know, it shuts it off at, I think it was 4 amps, which is pretty impressive actually for such a little motor. But I deem this capture as normal. You can kind of see just going through, every now and then it'll do something like that. I don't know why it's doing that. Maybe it's trying to cool itself, but I'm going to deem this as normal. It just backs itself up a little bit. I don't know if it's some sort of a logic that it swipes maybe to knock carbon out of the way. I really don't know, but I know that this car is fixed. And see, there's my missing area right there too. See, that right there really got me. So don't let it get you if you're ever fooling with one of these. And by the way, this thing did have a bulletin about a reprogram. It had already been done. It had a valve put on it. It had a computer put in it. There was a harness that needed to be put in it, but I did not want to put the harness in because, for one, it's a pain in the ass, and two, I want to know why the harness needs to be put in. So lots of parts got put on the car. People kept ordering parts, and I was like, damn it, stop ordering parts. We got to fix this car. And I'm glad I really stepped into this one deep, because I haven't had my butt kicked like that in a while. But I did it to myself, but I'm over it. Nothing that a couple Miller Lights can't fix, and we're on to the next ones. My next big case study is one ornery ass network problem, and I cannot wait to show this to you guys. This thing was gnarly, and that's all I'm going to say. So if you watched this long, thank you. You need Pico stuff, click the link, go to Auto Nerds. Anything bought there through that link helps you, which helps them, which helps me. And that way I can keep these videos moving forward, and hopefully entertaining and educational. Thanks for watching.